everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Avenue A. We just celebrated last week our 10th episode, which means 10 weeks of this show and 10 whole people who were willing to join me on Friday evenings. So I feel really honored and excited about that. And we push forward. So today is our 11th episode, and I'm so excited about this guest tonight. So without further ado, let me introduce them. Oh, if you're watching, drop a comment and say hi so that we can say hi back. All right, so our special guest tonight, their name is GARCíA. And a little bit about GARCíA. GARCíA is an actor and performer based in New York City. They grew up in Chicago and began acting as a teenager in community theater before they moved to New York City for university. GARCíA starred in the hit off-Broadway play Continuity by Bess Wohl, directed by Tony-nominated Hadestown director Rachel Chavkin, that premiered at the Manhattan Theater Club last spring. GARCíA also starred in the Netflix reboot of Tales of the City, which is an adaptation of Armistead Maupin's LGBTQ book series. According to Vice magazine, GARCíA is a breakout star and is part of the new frontier of queer representation on television. Most recently, they played the role of Matthew on Freeform's reboot of the original 1994 series Party of Five. So I'm so excited to have GARCíA here with us today. Without further ado, hi!
Hi. Oh man.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. So
I'm very
excited.
excited. So just for those of you who don't know GARCíA, a little bit of background. I met GARCíA at Stone Street at NYU this last semester. So we were just in classes together from January, I guess, till May, half of which was virtual.
Right.
Crazy ride.
A month and a half in person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but, you've been a great friend and a great colleague, and so we're
Likewise.
just excited to have you on tonight.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I think you're awesome. So
Thanks. um, all right, so I'm really interested. You have a couple of really amazing credits, specifically, working on Netflix's Tales of the City. That's so awesome, and the show is fantastic. So I'm wondering, what are 2 or 3 things that you learned being on the set of Tales and Party of Five that you hadn't learned just from your theater experience?
so much. 3 things. I mean it's entirely different, right? From the
Yeah.
moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep that night, your day is nothing. At least comparing it to being on off Broadway and having that run,
Yeah.
um, and realizing how much work goes into theater itself. Not that I didn't know that, but just it's a lot. It's a lot more. And then, not that TV and film isn't that, but definitely being on Tales. I think I put myself in a place where, of course, everything was high stakes. But soon realize that you kind of have more time in a way.
Hmm.
It's you have an entire script short, but you're only maybe filming 1 or 2 scenes that day, and maybe you have the next 3 days off, and then you're working your next day that you're working maybe 10, 12 hours. It's so
Right.
different as opposed to having a consistent schedule. You know what you're doing when when your tech is, when your rehearsals are, when you're gonna
Yeah.
go on, and that's it.
Yeah.
But for film and TV, you definitely have no idea really. I mean, you have an idea what your day's looking like. We saw it at Stone Street and Cormic's. They'll lay it
Right.
out for you, but you have no idea that anything can happen.
Hmm.
So
So
I don't know.
how did you handle that? I mean, it sounds like it's just a lot more like trust in the process. Like you're just sort of have to go with the flow.
Yeah, I remember every step of the way. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, and it was kind of eventually you learn that. I mean, on Tails, it was me and one other person that was fairly new. It was one, to film and TV, and everyone else around us they were big hitters. They were pros. They've been doing this their whole lives.
Yeah.
But you also start to learn that maybe not that you're all kind of on the same page in the sense of I don't know how to say you could be doing it for a long time and still have your doubts, and at least that's what I learned, what I heard, and what I saw, and so it was kind of comforting that, oh, I'm new to this, but there's also people that have been doing this entire lives that can sometimes feel the same ways that I did on set. Um, and I think the way I just armored myself with being new to Tales was just being as prepared as possible, because you want to be, and I think even, you have with people like Laura and Ellen and Olympia, you're like, oh, these are people you want to be your best.
Yeah.
As best as you can be, you kind of just, whatever that meant in terms of, reading the script every single day, going over your lines every single day, and making sure you're fully memorized for a scene that you're going to be doing 3 weeks from now. You just, and that's just the way I kind of coped with it, is just being as prepared as possible. And then it just being out of my hands at that point, because what else can you do but be prepared?
I mean, that's so true. And it sounds like the key in that kind of situation is just being ready for anything, because you don't have a set schedule, and things could change at any time, and you want to be, like you said, like super solid. That's interesting.
Fully memorized.
Yeah, right.
Fully
Just
memorized.
able to say your lines.
If you can say your lines, you're solid. There's no worries there.
So was that kind of a different level of preparation, or just a different type of preparation than the preparation you did for continuity?
I think also that was another form of, I want to be my best. I want to do my best.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, we all do, right? I would think, I would think so. We would all always want to, and I think because these were all first-time jobs, I suffer from like heavy imposter syndrome, and should I be here? Why am I here? Are they sure? Did someone mess up? But, and so the way I coped with that is just being fully attentive. Just I spent a lot of my time just listening, saying less, and unless I really had something I thought was important, or I wouldn't contribute. I don't know whether or not that hindered me, but I just felt like that was the way I processed being in those spaces, in those, to me, super professional spaces, where it leaves less room to mess up in my mind.
Sure.
Yeah, just I remember also too, when I was working on continuity, it was partly applying for school for credit as a way to make up for my absence of not being in studio. So I was also jotting down notes. I was always asking questions. I think that's something, and all sets and all projects are case by case. But I think once I was given the permission, or given the space that these people let me know that I could, I was always in video. Do you know Video Village on set?
Yeah. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for, I guess, those that are watching and don't know, so Video Village is where they set up camp, directors, executive producers, writers, and they're just a bunch of monitors, and they're sitting in these chairs and they're watching you, and that's Video Village. So I would go there between takes or on break, and I would just kind of see who I can kind of bother and who would let me get away with it, and just ask questions like, what's what, who does this, and you learn so much. And I don't know if actors think that they can't do that, or I don't know how many people do take advantage of that, but I definitely had so much fun. And then you get to know your crew members, you get to know who, how do dollies work, what does this camera do, what is this, but like, what do graphics do, like lighting, and there's so many people for one job, and you wouldn't think about it, but it's insane. You want to know, I mean, I think there's benefits to knowing that, because then you become close with these people, and you kind of feel you're in better care, maybe, and you're really good with hair and makeup. They're always going to make sure you're looking good. You just want to, you want to get to know the people on set and on projects as much as you can, and just ask as many questions as possible. And I just carried that over to continuity with the people I was working with. I was always trying to talk to Bess or Rachel in terms of like, what is the writing process like? How does the director make this decision? Like, what, as much as I could, because of course I was always nervous to take up too much space, but yeah.
Well, I think that I mean, that's really, it's a striking thing to me. And I think you're so like right on the nose with just asking questions and like putting yourself out there in that sense, especially relating back to what you said about imposter syndrome. Because I think that that's a very common thing that actors feel, especially when we feel like we're put in situations where maybe we like didn't deserve it, or we just like, I don't know, there's all, I go through very similar feelings, and there's a lot of anxiety that goes with that, and I know it's different for everyone, but
Mhm.
I think that sometimes when people feel that sort of sense of imposter syndrome, they can handle it two ways. One way, like the way that you're sort of talking about, where, you just get really curious and you just want to learn, right? Because you're like,
Mhm.
I have so much to learn, and you're just like an open sort of like vessel to absorb. And I think the other way that some people go is like overcompensating and just be like pretending like they know everything, right?
Definitely.
When they clearly don't. And
Right.
then
No
it's
one
just
likes
not a
that
good
person.
vibe. Right. Right. I mean, I think everyone knows that person,
Yes.
or a couple of those people. And it's
Yes.
not cute. It's not cute.
It's not, and you also wanna make sure that, I mean, these are people that you're it's this and this is something I kind of knew growing in just from being in collaborative spaces, but also
Yeah.
was reassured with the advice of don't be the asshole in the room, and because these are people that you never know you can either run into again or be on a project, or because, you're every single director I came in contact with, I tried to talk to, try to get to know a little bit more about their work, research what they've been doing to try to make that connection, because you never know when they're doing a project. One of the directors on Tales was a director on Party of Five, and I was so excited to work with her again. And imagine
Yes.
if that relationship was poor from jump, and see her again, that who knows what would have happened. But instead, I felt excitement and joy, and she felt the same way. To just, wow, we're on a different project now. This is so cool. And so even that is such a good example that I can pinpoint and remember, that I'm so glad that I established this relationship already, and I run into this person, and then people start to think about you too for future projects,
Right.
and that applies for not just directors, again, writers, executive producers in general. You just always want to be your best, be as kind, and be so willing, because if you pretend that you know what you're doing, or if you try to overcompensate, people can very much smell that, and
Yeah.
stay away from it. Um,
And I bet that developing that relationship with that one director, then when you saw her again on the next set, I bet that that felt so good for you, just to like have sort of like already an ally that
yeah.
knows you and that like knows what you can do. I
Hmm.
mean, theater really is a small world, and I think
Yeah.
that's a fantastic example of like such the right thing to do, because then
Hmm.
it comes around in a great way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. Yeah. For continuity, someone that I went to playwrights with was an were they intern slash stage manager slash was shadowing Rachel as well. And so that even having that relationship in that room is, oh, this is someone I didn't know personally, but
Yeah.
saw in a similar space. So even that small world of playwrights, and both being working on this play together, and
Yeah.
imagine if that relationship was poor. You always want to just be your best, and obviously work with people, be easy to work with, be open to doing things entirely different, even if it maybe doesn't work for you at first, just because why not? What do we lose?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and I think definitely, I'm definitely someone that results. So I absolutely know nothing, and not to discredit myself, but because like I never want to assume that I already do, just in case maybe I did know how to do this one thing, but let me step back and kind of hold myself and see what you can show me. What can I be taught? Where can we meet in the middle? So I think that also, and then that leaves room, for more collaboration and just more ideas for things to just unravel, I guess, in the best ways.
I respect that so much. And I think I definitely experienced that from you just by working with you in class. And I bet you that quality of yours is really like what, made these roles that you played so rich and like really groundbreaking. And that
Thank
kind of
you.
leads me, you're welcome. It kind of leads me into the next, it's totally true. Um, the next question I have, so in Tales,
Mm.
can you tell us a little bit about the character that you played?
Jake Rodriguez. He, from character description that I remember, is a late 20s student nurse, caregiver to Anna Madrigal.
Hmm.
Um, 2.5 years into his transition, and I remember the last sentence is currently spiraling out these days. Uh,
You're like, how do I play that?
yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was him. Which actually
Nice.
not too far off. Other than him being a nursing student, I remember reading that for the audition, that description, and then reading the sides that came attached to it, and kind of being like, oh, this is me. This is
Hmm.
exactly not at all different than who I am. I feel as a person, and I think that was like one of the not. I think that was the first time I ever felt like, oh, this if because in my mind I was like, if this ever goes up, because I never really saw it as a real project until I think it came out. But that's something else.
Hmm. Yeah, right.
Um, and, but I remember reading that and, like, I've never been able to identify with a character in such specific, intimate ways
Hmm.
that I've heard of course, other people talk about when they see a movie or one of their favorite television shows, and so that was
Yeah.
so being able to play a character, it didn't even really feel sometimes that I was acting because it just
Wow.
felt so like this is who I am. This is my day to day. This is yeah. The writing and for that character specifically was so authentic and rightfully so. I mean, you had the writers room was so diverse and spot on with. There was a lot of care put into the show, so it wasn't too hard.
Hmm. That's really fascinating. I mean, what do you think that character, Jake, right?
hmm
What do you think Jake means for trans and non-binary representation on screen?
For trans men specifically, because he was a trans man, he identified him, and that was something, of
Right.
course, that wasn't so specific to me.
Sure.
But and at that time, because when you're in a project, you can't. You're so in it, and you don't really see until later on, maybe
Mm.
the effects of the project as a whole, but maybe even the character you played.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't until it came out that and people my following was building and the messages were coming in from other people all over the world, trans boys and girls, but specifically trans masked folks
Mm.
that heavily identified with him and were sending really deep, intimate messages that I felt so honored to receive, and that they could trust someone they'd never even met, will never meet, maybe. And it was finally like this weight of like, because we all know projects like they're bigger than us. It's always anything we're working on. At least that's the way I navigate it. This is so much bigger than me. I am nothing compared to this. Like this is so much more important than how I feel or what my role in all of this is. And so I'm losing my train of thought.
You were talking about the messages and how people were really trusting you.
Right. So in playing Jake, I didn't really understand what that character meant. I knew what it meant for me, and I knew what it meant to
Yeah.
even audition and read those sides and how important that was. And I knew reading the scripts every day where I was like, wow, this is so, but like not to really think until you see it that other people can feel this exact same way, and it can mean the world to them to
Yeah.
see themselves on television and specifically identify with things that you can grow up feeling utterly alone in, that I myself have felt utterly alone in. And even though these people are countries away or states away, the community, it kind of just shrinks down. You're like, oh, this is so nice and precious, even if it's through one little message.
Yeah.
And it really made me realize that of course representation matters. Of course we need this. Of course we need that level of diversity, and to see all types of people across the spectrum, because it it really means something to you. So yeah, I think that was a big thing that I took away from Jake's character and the way that people related to him.
Well, and I mean, I know that you said it feels so sort of outside of you, but
Hmm.
you really are the vessel for that character. And for me, watching the show, it was so incredible to see how you as an actor and you as a person enriched that story, like Jake's story, and how you were able to really give the role so much humanity and a lot of like the role wasn't just about Jake being trans. You know
Right.
what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
also a big thing too. Like
Hmm.
Jake was such a complex character
Yeah.
and human being, and there was
Yeah.
so much to him and so much that different things that he focused on and struggled with.
Yeah.
His identity being one of them, and
Hmm.
I think I just applaud you because I think that's huge.
Thank you. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. That was one of the right. That's completely set. That was one of the big deals with him. It wasn't, and that's right. That's obviously trans, non-binary. Anybody is more than their identity, and
Right.
that was such a beautiful thing about that role specifically that I thoroughly enjoyed. That this isn't just about his body or what the people that he was having sex with. It was this
Right.
deeper complexities of a relationship that he with someone that he thoroughly loved, but like
Yeah.
anybody else. I mean, you don't have to be trans to identify with his character in the sense that, oh, I'm with someone, but I'm having other desires, and how do we talk about those things and how do we explore those desires? So that was really, really fun to explore and play with and just to see on screen later on. It's like, holy shit, like we've never in a sense, we've never seen something like that. That specificity within that character. Yeah, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. And I recently watched Disclosure, the documentary on Netflix. For those of you who haven't
Mhm.
watched Disclosure, go watch it.
Watch
Because
it.
there's a little clip at the end, right, from Tales of
Yeah.
you in a scene, which is so amazing. I like was totally fangirling when I was watching that. Um, but yeah, that documentary is fantastic.
Please.
And yeah,
It was
for
so.
anyone watching, if you're interested in sort of the conversation of representation specifically for transgendered individuals, go watch
Mhm.
Disclosure on Netflix.
Yeah. Please.
Fantastic.
So important for me as well.
Yeah.
Just like, I learned so
Oh
much,
my
and I
God. Yeah.
was crying. Like there was just
Mm-hmm.
it was a
Mm-hmm.
lot. It was really emotional for me. But just again showing that it was like, oh, we of course we have history, of course we're more than the things that we've been portrayed to be on screen, and to see it all put together so well by Jen Richards being someone who was on Tales, and just seeing her when she's so wonderful as a person, and the
Yeah.
stories that she tells and the way that she speaks. It's just, yeah, very thankful for Laverne Cox as well for just putting that together, because things like that are just extremely important.
Yes, very. And just yeah, it's like you were saying, just strikingly done. Very well
Hmm.
done. All right. So I'm wondering,
Yes.
what is a failure of yours, or maybe an apparent failure, that set you up for later success? And do you have a favorite failure of yours?
I'll answer the second half of that first.
Sure.
In terms of the success of my failures, I think I'm someone who's not really sure how to measure that for myself. Like what is success? I'm still trying to figure that out. I had a lot of yeah, I constantly navigating similar failures and never fully conquering them. Still learning how to,
Yeah.
especially project to project. Um, I think if I'm getting really a little personal, I didn't let myself enjoy it enough, and I still don't let myself enjoy it. And I think that itself is a failure, that I didn't celebrate myself in these small accomplishments. Booking Tales, I was nervous the entire time. Again, I suffered from imposter syndrome the entire time. And although I just talked about being as prepared as I could, I still felt like I could have done more. I wasn't doing enough. And sometimes that could hinder you, or sometimes it hindered me on set. There was times where I would I would freak out if I had to do a scene 4 or 5 times, and then you start to feel like, oh my god, what am I not giving them? Like, and I had to step away. And luckily, there was people on set, and it was such a beautiful environment where I could step aside and talk to someone, and they can calm me down and be like, they can get that reassurance that I so badly needed at that time.
Yeah.
And still in a way do, when that only carried on when I went into, when I booked continuity again. I felt I didn't celebrate that. I was just so focused on I can't mess up. I can't mess up. It has to be like, and just beating myself up so much, as I'm sure all artists in some capacity do.
Yeah.
But I just did it to a point where it's just, I never allowed myself to fully enjoy the experience. And again, the same applied to Party of Five. It was a little different in the sense I was recurring, and kind of felt like it was something I was just in and out of, and of course would only drop in on the episodes that they wrote me in on, and I wasn't a lead, so there was a different pressure that I didn't put on myself for that, and I was able to have a lot more fun. So again, I guess that's something that, again, I'm working on not repeating those same failures, and again, still trying to navigate what a success out of that failure really looks like, and just success in general. What does that look like for anyone, for any artist?
Yeah, it's a loaded word, success. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's definitely not what I thought it would be, or at least even what I was told it would be. So
What were you told it would be?
I was told on Tales that my life was going to change, and not that it hasn't. Of course, like, life changes all the time. My life will be different tomorrow, but just there was a lot of people around me that were maybe gassing me up a little too much. I don't know, but there were like empty promises, and I think that's maybe something I would want to pass on as advice. Just because you book something, it doesn't mean you're set. It doesn't mean you're rich. It doesn't mean you got it all figured out. Like, the hustle you have to keep working at it. You have to keep going. Because all the projects that I've been a part of are one and done. Tales was a limited series, 1 season, that was it. We knew that. Continuity is a short, that's it. Party of Five, I don't believe is being renewed. So, and there's a beauty to that, even though it can be scary. Because what I have heard from people that have been doing this such a long time is that if it was the opposite, it's those people that get wrapped up in shows that last 5, 10, 15 seasons. When that's finished, they freak out entirely, and they don't know what to do because you've been working so much and the job has just been coming. So I'm actually really fortunate that my success has been so messy, scattered, not, stagnant. Like, it's been a mess. And I think that's even humbled me further and has shown me that just because I booked it means nothing. I mean, it does mean something, but in the long run, it for me, it doesn't mean much. It's just a little stepping stone into, this field that can, it's tough. It's tough. It's really hard, and I don't ever want to misguide, not misguide. I don't want anyone to ever think just because, it's you book that big thing that all your problems are solved, and you're gonna be an actor forever. It's definitely something. I mean, I'm sure we all know, but you just constantly have to work at it. And
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's about the work,
yeah, it's always about the work. And and I love that, and I always love that. I'm not someone who's scared of any type of hard work. So it's it's exciting, but also really terrifying. Yeah.
So I want to go back a bit to what you were talking about having a hard time being in the moment and like enjoying it in the moment, because I think that is so huge and also really common. I struggle with that all the time because there is this thing with actors who are like high functioning. You have so much that you have to remember and do, and you have to show up on time, and you have to know where to go, and you have to wear the right thing, and you feel like you have to say the right thing, and you have to look the right way, and all of these things. And especially on, bigger sets like that, I can imagine that it was so overwhelming and almost impossible to just like be in the moment. Like, I have no idea how one would even be in the moment in something like that because there's so much happening.
Yeah, I agree. Me neither. I don't even. It's like you know that there's cameras there, you know that there's people there, um, but I think for Tales, like the first scene was a really intimate scene in bed with my co-star and I, and that was the first scene of the series that was ever shot. And you're kind of just in this room full of people, and the camera's just so close to your face, and yeah, it was always hard for me to drop in because you literally feel, unlike theater, even though that's of course a totally, I think theater for me, yeah, I can be in the moment in theater all the time. You know, it's so for, at least for me, I can forget that I'm just fully here. I'm in my body.
Yeah.
It's going 100%. But film and
Mhm.
TV, you're cut, okay, reset, and you kind of just have to. I mean, we all eventually you build your own method of how to keep yourself aligned and not veer off and not lose, you know, whatever train of thought your character is on. You can't lose that. There's so many things going on. And that was something else that I really, really struggled with, especially in the beginning of filming, was like, this is crazy. It's, you know, this thing exists, but once you're dropped into it, it's like, holy shit, it's too much. It can almost be overwhelming because of
Yeah.
how much is going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Were there sort of tricks that you, or certain techniques that you sort of developed along the way of filming Tales that helped you, or how did you cope with those feelings?
Similarly to the the way I was so willing to ask questions and talk to people, you start to learn, you know, the crew members' names. You start to learn props
Right.
and hair and set this, like the people who are working. You start to just see them every day. And you're talking to them. You learn their names. And for me,
Yeah.
they became like really good and they are, they're your coworkers, and these are the people that, like any other job, like you want to go to work, you want to see the people you work with,
Yeah.
and you start to then build this environment where you're more comfortable because you can be more yourself because you now know these people, their names and what they did over the weekend and what their interests are and how fun they are. So, and eat lunch with them. Some actors, of course, would prefer to go to their room and work on whatever they're doing. Everyone, but for me, I was like, no, I want to sit down. I want to talk to these people. I want to get to know them, and I'm really good friends with a lot of the crew members now, and we do stuff together. You know, it's, you want to
Mm.
cultivate relationships just because why not?
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big deal to just make those relationships a little more personal. And that way I can be, when I'm in that room and I'm under that what can feel like a magnifying glass, it's a little less, because you know that you can get a sense that, oh, these people aren't judging me because they like me and I like them.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was definitely a way I coped with freaking out a little less.
Well, that's fantastic. And I mean, you really like tied our whole conversation with a bow with that, because, you know, you at the beginning you were talking about how you were really striving to like get to know people and just like make everyone feel like, you know, they are cared about and that there's a genuine, you know, we're all humans in this space working.
Yeah.
Um,
It is a
and
beautiful thing.
yeah,
Because you all know you're there to do one thing, and it's
right,
to make this thing, and you want it to be your
right,
best thing, you know, and
yeah,
that's so fun that everyone is on the same track. It's like we're here to do this project, and we're here to make it the best project it could ever be, you know.
yeah.
So I think that's the beauty in the word collaboration, in the sense, even though
Mm.
I think oftentimes we think of actors as like, if they're the only one on screen, so they're the one doing all the work. But there's so much happening. There's like no way, it would be impossible without these millions of other
Oh my
people.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
And when you can have a genuine connection with the other people on set, I mean, it just makes it, I think that it makes the art better because then
yeah,
everyone feels like there's life running through their veins and they want
hmm,
to do the best they can do and they want to prop each other up, you know, like you were talking
yeah,
about, if you're friends with the makeup person, they're going to
yeah.
make you
Well,
look
like,
so snatched, you know, which
yes,
is like, yeah, I think that that's so true, and it's a really great reminder.
hmm,
Yeah.
definitely can't
Okay,
go
so we
wrong
have
making
to.
friends.
You cannot go wrong with making
Yeah.
friends. That's true. That's true. Everyone take away from this episode. You can't go wrong with making friends. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but my last and favorite question. Who is someone that is not in your network now that you wish was, and how would you go about getting them into your network?
Man, I did think about this, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
And then a million people ran through my head, and I was like, I can't pick. Um, there's My immediate response was Jordan Peele, just because of his work, and
Oh
also
yeah.
recently he did Candyman, and that took place in Chicago. I'm a diehard Chicagoan, born and raised,
Mm.
and we're also part of the same. We're in the same network. We're signed to the same company, and so that was something that I was like, how can I get my work towards him?
Yeah.
So I'm always talking to my manager, and I'm always kind of like slipping it. But for me, the way I can work towards that is actually producing something, actually writing something that I can present to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely the first step is writing it. But he is someone that has been on my radar since Get Out, and especially more so since seeing Candyman and being, yeah, I really, really just, even if it's just to shadow him, I just want to be around him. I want to be in the same spaces as him. I think what he's in terms of like horror, but also just all the other messages that it's so fun to
Oh my
see him
God.
play around, and the work that he's produced, and also just
Yeah.
like knowing people that I've worked with him, and that he is a pleasure to work. Like that's even more comforting, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Uh, so I'm close, but I'm not as close as I want to be. But that's
But
something that
that's
I'm
kind of like fucking awesome though. I don't know, like just hearing like that he's close, but still, like
so far.
so far, but
Yeah.
like anything's possible,
Yeah, we have to. Yeah, you never know who knows who, and I think that's the
Yeah.
other thing too. Is again, that's why anybody you come across, whether it's an audition and you're sitting amongst other actors, you want to be your best and as kind as you can be always, because you have no
Mm-hmm.
idea who knows who, and that can either serve you or really knock you out. And really, you're the only one that stands in the way of that is yourself. At the end of the day, at least that's what I'm learning. Um, yeah, definitely him. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We're
we'll
gonna
see.
we're
We'll
gonna end
see.
the episode on that. I mean, that's you are the only one that is standing in your own way, like you just said. Like I think
Yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
That's
Sometimes.
it.
There's other
Sometimes.
obstacles, but yeah,
There
mainly
are
it's
so many other
mainly
obstacles, but we get in our own ways sometimes, I
right,
think.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Garcia, thank you for taking the time to be on this show. This
Thank
was such
you.
a delight. I mean, it made my week.
Likewise, it's so good to just see you. I know we'll see each other again, but I'm just
I know it's
excited to
like we're
see you.
hanging out.
Yeah, we are. This is good.
Okay, so for anyone watching, if you want to follow Garcia, you can find him on Instagram. What is Garcia? And they are the best, and they have a great Instagram feed. So follow them if you
Thank
know
you.
it's good for you.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that concludes our show. Thanks again.
thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too. I'll see you later.
All right.
All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. Um, that warmed my heart. I have missed Garcia greatly. It really feels like we were just hanging out, which is fantastic. But yeah, we'll have another show for you next week. Another super exciting guest. So stay tuned for that announcement. Yay. And that's it. Have a great weekend. Peace out.